The big push. We all want one, even if we're not wrestlers. You work at the grocery store in the fruit aisle, you've got your eyes on baked goods. I mean, that's not how supermarkets work, but it's a free world. I can say whatever I want. It is very important in sports entertainment because it's basically your currency. You can be the best grappler on the planet, but if a company doesn't get behind you, you're sort of screwed. That's why when somebody does get one of these pushes and it doesn't work, well, it's no fun. So let's relive some of these live and in real time before we figure out why. Slap your damn head. Number 15, Nathan Jones. This was in 2003, so let's make it clear, it kinda wasn't Nathan Jones' fault. You can find the same report over and over from this time, where huge dudes were hired by WWE, and as soon as Vince McMahon saw them, he called them up to the main roster. The issue was this wasn't 1984 anymore. Being a giant wasn't enough, and poor folk like Nathan were performing on pay-per-views before even being taught basic wrestling fundamentals. What did anybody think was going to happen? Jones was especially huge as he was near 7 foot and was also jacked, so on the 10th of April SmackDown he beat Bill DeMott before becoming the protege of The Undertaker. Felt a bit weird, but again, WWE knew he needed experience, so put him with the guy that had a lot of that. The big story was going to be these two teaming together at WrestleMania 19 to face A-Train in the Big Show, but just beforehand, WWE pulled Jones because, well, they realized he didn't have the right experience. Honestly, you couldn't write this. It's like punching yourself in the face and wondering why you got a bruise. This was my hand, why would it do it to me? It turned into a handicap match with Nathan just helping out instead. And then, well, we never really saw him again. He returned to developmental promotion OVW and that was damning. But why didn't we do this to begin with? It was also the end of this push. And I think after a while, Nathan Jones got tired of it all and he just left wrestling altogether. So that was silly. If we had just given it time, who knows where it'd all be now? Ah well. Number 14, Liv Morgan. From 2022. It's even madder to go back now and watch, because compare it to Liv Morgan in 2024. How did we get this first go-around so wrong? Suppose it started alright as she won the Money in the Bank briefcase and cashed in on the same night to take the title from then champion Ronda Rousey. But after that, I have no flippin' idea. Because WWE went and did that thing they often do when they weren't entirely sure how hard to push Liv Morgan, so she sort of became the champion in name alone. I mean, go and watch the SummerSlam match between Ronda and Liv. Even Rousey talked about this. The information and approach they were being given by management was ridiculous. Then by October's Extreme Rules, Morgan dropped the belt back. It really was such a shame as it started with so much promise and fans liked it. But then Liv had to talk and act like she was lucky, so this happened, and then she would switch and acted all defensive about it. It's very strange. Dare I say we were planning this as we went along, and nobody knew whether Morgan was a heel or face. It always makes it more confusing when you start well too. Just carry that on. Nope. If only somebody else had seen what Morgan had within her. Again, 2024 became one of the most important members of the entire roster. Number 13, Rocky Maivia. It is mad to think this was almost 30 years ago, but from 1996 to 1997, the world didn't warm to the brand new Rocky Maivia, aka Dwayne Johnson. It's hilarious now as he would take over the company and the world, but in the mid-90s, yeah, we got the character very, very wrong. You can see this throughout the WWF product too, because while the world evolved, they didn't. It was all silly gimmicks and childish stories, so when Rocky debuted and was told to smile regardless what happened, well, the fans didn't like it. Even when this guy lost, he looked like he was happy with this. Nobody wanted that. People were also picking up on the fact that WWE was going to push this guy down our throats. They were not interested. This was more of a 1970s babyface presentation than, say, Stone Cold Steve Austin, who at this time was getting ready to take over the industry. The NWO were also exploding on WCW, so it's bizarre Vince McMahon didn't pick up on this. It felt so obvious. The crowd let it be known they weren't having it as Maivia not only got booed, but then there were those chants, Rocky sucks, and die Rocky die. That one is a little bit much, but hey, they got their point across. What really summed this up is that the future Great One was given a shoulder breaker as his finisher, and think of that. So stupid. And while you never want anybody to get hurt, a knee injury actually saved The Rock. It meant he could go away and come back as a heel, and he basically went on to become one of the best in history. The sheer 180 is one of the most impressive things you could ever hope to see. Number 12, Braun Strowman. In 2020, I'm not talking about 2016. That was awesome. And the fact that WWE didn't give him the world title then was an error. The fans wanted it too. Didn't happen. Maybe management realized that because 4 years later we actually did go all in with this guy and made Strowman the champion. It did not work. Now, a huge reason for this was the pandemic. It just ruined everything, and so many people were coming and going. That's why Braun got the nod in the first place. Wrestlers were dropping like flies. It was Roman Reigns who kickstarted this as he pulled out of WrestleMania 36, meaning Bill Goldberg needed a title contender. That was Strowman, and as Roman was gonna win, we had Braun win instead. You could tell there was no plan here. His first feud was The Miz and John Morrison in a comedy match. Vince McMahon also turned Strowman into a gentle giant, which nobody wanted. And then the Shane McMahon feud happened a few months later. We acted like Braun was the guy getting bullied because Shane made schoolyard insults. Still don't know who this was for. And after that, people like to throw in the Nicholas tag team situation, but no, not for me. At least that was hilarious. It really hurt the Universal title too because it went Kevin Owens to Goldberg to Strowman. And yeah, the latter two were not thought out at all. We just did it because it was something to do. It's never good. Number 11, Bret Hart. So I'm not entirely sure that push is the right word here. Bret Hart should always be a central figure. See WCW circa 1998. Ridiculous. We ignored the Hitman. When he finally returned to WWE in 2010 though, time stood still. I truly thought that this would never happen, but wrestling figures out all controversies, and not only did Bret Hart shake hands with Shawn Michaels, he confronted Vince McMahon. Then the boss booted him in the balls, and here we go. The feud was continuing. That is the key word here as well, because this wasn't something new. Everybody knew the beef between the two, and yet for some reason, WWE decided to add in extras, such as McMahon trying to run over Bret in a car. That was goofy wrestling silliness, which is great, but not here. We had the realest of all storylines. I think most fans were just confused. Hart also couldn't compete like he used to after some serious injuries, so really the fact he did anything was inspiring. He came back from the brink. It did mean his match with Vince at WrestleMania 26 was a bit weird, however. In hindsight, it wasn't the war we hoped for. We also threw in the rest of the Hart Foundation, which sort of sullied things too, and I tell you the biggest faux pas, having Bret use the new version of his entrance theme. Still not over that. Just go back to the OG, man. It's goated. For some reason, Hart then won the US title, which was just strange. And while it was kind of nice and likely gave Hart some needed closure, it just wasn't what it could have been on a different timeline. But actually, when you take a step back and think about this, I'd much rather have this than not. So I will take that all the way to the bank. Number 10, Vader. When the Mastodon arrived in the WWF in 1996, it should have been huge. Vader had been the man everywhere he worked across the world, and all you had to do was let him do his thing. Nope, we did the opposite. It does feel like this was political because Vader had told Vince McMahon they should wait on his debut until he wasn't injured. Of course, Vince wasn't going to listen to that, and Vader instead was thrown into the Royal Rumble. He only lasted 11 minutes. It's not ideal for a monster. The next night he beat up GM Gorilla Monsoon and got suspended, and that was weird, because when he returned, he had a nothing feud with Yokozuna. All of this just meant that Vader was coming and going because he was hurt. It was almost like we wanted this to fail. McMahon's claim at the time was the 96 Royal Rumble needed more star power, but I don't think that's true. As well as the winner Shawn Michaels, you had Bret Hart, The Undertaker, Diesel, Razor Ramon, Owen Hart. The fact it was HBK that threw Vader out too didn't help. He was meant to be unthrowable. It really was dumb too, because if a WWF fan wasn't aware of Vader, this was their first impression of the man. He could only last 11 minutes in a Royal Rumble. It was not the way to push him, and before long, Vader was told to go on camera and call himself a fat piece of shit. Not kidding either, that was the big idea. So remember that the next time Vince Russo claims he can save wrestling, move it on. Number 9, Billy Gunn. 1999. The WWF had figured out that new stars worked, so let's take Billy Gunn and give it a try. And you don't get how massive that man is until you meet him, so yeah, in the land of the giants, you're probably going to give it a go. The Rock was chosen as his opponent, which seemed interesting as the People's Champ at the time was becoming the man. Not sure anybody thought Gunn would win that feud, but hey, maybe it can elevate him regardless. That did not happen. It did start alright as Billy won the King of the Ring, so on Raw he and Rocky were pitched together in a promo segment. But you will remember this, it's quite famous. The Great One ruined him. It really took on a life of its own too because it was absolutely hilarious. The Rock made it clear he had spoken to the Lord, who confirmed that yes, Billy Gunn sucks. I'm not sure anybody could have dealt with it better, but it still halted the push, especially because WWF then panicked and just reunited the New Age Outlaws anyway. It happened that fast. It feels unfair to say the big tournament win was a waste of time, but it also kind of was. You could see it too. WWF ended this so quickly. It was just right back to the tag team. And let's not pretend otherwise. Billy Gunn still had a great career, but this one started and finished in record time. Number 8, Lex Luger. The big 1993 push. It is written into WWF legend now because Vince McMahon finally decided Hulkamania was dead when he picked Lex Luger as the next Hulk Hogan. There's the issue instantly. Nobody was ever going to step into Hulk's boots or ever took this flag needed to stamp their own style on the World Wrestling Federation. But no, Vince just turned Lex mega babyface and even put him on a statewide bus tour. That's right, we named the bus the Lex Express, which was weird, before Luger slammed Yokozuna on a boat. I don't know, I'm just regaling the facts. This apparently was meant to make Lex Luger the next big thing. It's not like Lex couldn't have achieved this either, but again, fans didn't want Hulk Hogan Part 2. One of the reasons the gimmick had stopped working is because that's human nature. We'd had enough, please give us something fresh, and then we got old mold instead. That's a bit harsh. The man then made it worse because he didn't commit to this at all because he was so worried about the tepid reaction. Therefore, we had that mad SummerSlam decision where Luger won by countout. By the time we got to WrestleMania 10, he was murked. We're going with Brett instead. We should have just gone all into the hottest event of the summer and see if Lex could have connected with the fans, and it sort of left Lex in no man's land. He then soon eventually jumped ship back to WCW, and I'm convinced all of this was part of the decision. It was all just so badly thought out. Number 7, Ludwig Borger. I will never understand this. It is 1993 again, so maybe management was just stressing out, but Ludwig Borger was never the dude. He had a Nazi tattoo on his leg for one, and as we have got here, if you think that's fine. That's right, go back into your hole. As I'm sure you can figure out, Borger was meant to be the first proper feud for Lex Luger, because he was Mr. America, and Ludwig was from foreign lands. Couldn't leave the 80s behind. We then had a mess as fans didn't really warm to Lex, and they really didn't care about Ludwig, so this feud basically had no heat. The WWF realized this pretty quickly as Borger was released in January 1994, and his total push time was 6 months. So we can't act like people didn't regret this, and it's also sort of on the creative process. They had Ludwig cutting promos against the USA sewage system. Europe was better apparently, and sure, that's important when running for office, but in wrestling, just kick the man's ass for goodness sake. Number 6, Sin Cara. This signing in 2011 was somewhat historic as this was the first guy Triple H chose where he became head of talent relations. It wasn't totally mad as Mystico, as he was known in Mexico, was awesome. It's the same right now too. He's the king of CMLL. The WWE wanted to make this so big they even held a press conference in February, and it was clear they wanted to make the newly named Sin Cara the next Rey Mysterio. It's always risky. Rey is one of the best to ever do it. He literally changed the game. The rumor has always been that when Cara arrived backstage, he had an air of confidence about him. The truth is, you couldn't do that back then. Sounds ridiculous, but that was the lay of the land. I would assume Sin didn't have the best time with his peers, because in the ring it all fell apart instantly. He couldn't even get his entrance right. For whatever reason, these mistakes kept happening too, and before long, that's how he was seen. Not an amazing high flyer, he was just a man that fell down. Sin Cara then fell foul of the wellness policy before Triple H and McMahon decided this was done, and they pulled the plug. The luchador became just another dude on the roster. We even changed the man under the mask eventually. The original Sin Cara fell out with management, so he was gone. All of this was bonkers. It just meant after a while he was on borrowed time, and it's just so crazy, because go and look at him now. WWE would love to have him back. It goes to show, in this stupid sport, you can never account for anything. Number 5, Mordecai. You may have heard the legend of 3 weeks. It was some weird edict Vince McMahon had in his brain, where if you weren't getting Stone Cold pops in 3 weeks, your push was done. Nobody can get over that fast, and it ruined many a gimmick. Now, that doesn't mean Mordecai would have main evented WrestleMania, but he was one of the first to be eaten alive by this. He got the big promo package push, and then he was gone from the company almost instantly. Clearly he had something, because the videos we saw had Mordecai targeting The Undertaker and saying he was going to be the lightness to his darkness. That made sense. Taker was back to being the dead man, so sure, do a spooky feud. Not like sports entertainment doesn't love one of those. We then got Mordecai versus Scotty 2 Hotty at Judgment Day 2004, and it would be nice to say that this didn't get over. I don't think the audience understood the character, or why they should care about a very mid-card match. There was just no time to let it bed in. We were throwing stuff at the wall. Within 3 months, he had been sent down to OVW, which told the crowd that WWE didn't think he was ready and that they'd made a mistake. Didn't follow up on the Undertaker stuff, of course. It just stopped happening. This is why WWE having a monopoly over the industry is bad. It lets them do things like this. Number 4, Muhammad Hassan. The whole idea with Muhammad Hassan was proof that WWE can't handle sensitive subjects with the nuance that's needed. He walked on to Raw in 2004 and wanted to talk about America post 9/11 and why the world had casted doubt over all Muslims. That wasn't very fair. I tell you, he was right. Now, if we had kept to this lane, sure, who knows? But as ever, before long, Hussein was just anti-America heel, essentially leaning into the worst kind of stereotypes. It should have been nixed there and then, but of course Vince McMahon saw all the press as good press. He went way over the line in July 2005. Because on the same day as the London Tube bombing, SmackDown aired an angle where Muhammad and a group of would-be terrorists attacked The Undertaker with piano wire. Didn't take a genius to figure out what this was, and while the actual segment itself was recorded a few days later, nobody cared about that. It went live on the same day. Everybody was rightfully offended, including SmackDown Network UPN, who told WWE to get rid of this character instantly. Come the Great American Bash pay-per-view, The Undertaker threw Hassan through a stage, and we never saw him again. The whole thing was just awful, as the man behind it, Mark Capani, will tell you. He couldn't even find another wrestling job after this. It was the worst of WWE. It never should have happened. Let's get next. Number 3, Mabel. 1995 was so weird for the WWF because, as we've touched upon elsewhere, Vince McMahon didn't know what to do. Tried Lex Luger, tried Bret Hart, was trying Diesel, when we moved to Mabel. This one was particularly weird because before this, Mabel had been one half of Tag Team Men on a Mission, and while they were fun, they were the definition of the mid-card. It started with a King of the Ring win, which was very unexpected, especially because he outdid The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. They were also in this thing. Ultimately, Vince wanted a huge guy to work with Kevin Nash, so this was his choice, but that was ignoring where Diesel operated at his best, wrestling smaller dudes. But why listen to that, even though you could literally watch him and Bret Hart strike gold? Mabel was never going to be able to have that kind of match, meaning Nash had to sell too, which wasn't cool. And yep, people then started getting injured. Not only did Mabel hurt Kevin's back, but he shattered The Undertaker's orbital bone. That's 2 people you do not want to wound. Before long, somebody had talked to McMahon, and the push was over. Not like the fans had bought in anyway, and Mabel was fine. He went on to start the NWO. That's a deep cut for you there. Number 2, Dr. Death Steve Williams. Picture the scene. After deciding Steve Williams can be a short-term decent opponent for Steve Austin, WWE decided to book Dr. Death in a real-life shoot tournament. How ridiculous is this? Because we created the Brawl for All where there was no control over the future, as opposed to, just booking Williams to win matches. Feels easier to me, but what do I know? And yes, sure, Steve was a proper tough guy who could handle himself, but a real scrap is a real scrap. Not like he was in there with me. He was fighting dudes who were going to hit back, which is why on the 27th of July 1998 Raw, Williams got knocked out courtesy of eventual winner Bart Gunn. Nothing you could do after that. Steve looked loosey-goosey too because he actually was. Nobody was ever going to accept him in a world title program now. It was so dumb. Even Gunn got ruined for winning the thing, maybe due to this, because pro boxer Butterbean sparked him out. And it really cannot be overstated how stupid this was. It most definitely ruined Williams, and even the guy that was victorious, because he got told off for winning in a tournament where he was told to fight for real. You tell me, man. You tell me. Number 1, Scott Steiner. Scott Steiner was not in the best health when he debuted for the WWE at the 2002 Survivor Series. Let's not pretend this wasn't awesome at the time, because it was, especially as Steiner went Steiner instantly. Shouted, "Give me the mic right into the audio receiver, and yes, everybody heard it. From there, though, he got into a feud with Triple H, and it just didn't work. I don't know whether they just didn't get on or that Scott's foot injury was holding him back, but they struggled through these, which was heightened because at the same time the SmackDown 6 were running wild, but the differences were obvious. It was frustrating, as if WWE had brought Steiner in for the invasion, the story would have been totally different, but during this extra year his issues had got worse. This wasn't a big booty daddy, or at least not in the ring, and Scott had been great in WCW, and due to that connection, maybe, just maybe, other forces were working against him too. That was always the problem. The feud between these two companies was real. Let's just put it this way, because if you ever do want to go back and see Steiner during his peak, well, you should probably ignore this. It's just not a fair reflection and came at the wrong time. I mean, maybe WWE should have taken this into mind and booked him differently. But you know the 3 words that sum this up? They did not. Know of any other pushes that WWE likely regretted instantly, or at least backfired? Let us know in the comments below. Before you like the video, share the video, and subscribe. You can then click the video on the screen to get even more love from What Culture Wrestling and me, whatever that means. It sounds totally dodgy. You take care, my friends, and I'll speak to you soon.